Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. The Full Time podcast is presented and powered by 91 Network. You're listening to Season 6, Episode 10 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. The Full Time Podcast is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The Full Time Podcast is also sponsored by Sioux Sports. To check out Sioux Sports and all of their articles, announcements, and streaming platforms, including True Host Media and True North Radio, visit SiouxSports.com as well as Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms with public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, we welcome you back to Full Time, where all of our passions in sport connect. G, how are you tonight, my friend?
I'm doing good. Managed to avoid the rain. The international break's over. Club football is back, so I'm doing fantastic. How about you tonight, Scarps?
I really cannot complain about anything. School is in full swing. We're back into the routine. International break's over, so all is going well. In today's show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five and the MLS. We will preview the Champions League, and we will also dive into some local and provincial soccer. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on all platforms of 91 Network. And without further ado, Gitano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. Today's show begins with a brief discussion on the Ballon d'Or. Gee, I'm going to pass it over to you, sir.
Yes, so Ousmane Dembélé won the 24-25 Ballon d'Or. I'm going to read off his stats, but I just want to start by saying just so rightfully deserved. There's been a lot of, in the last few Ballon d'Ors, basically since kind of the Ronaldo-Messi era ended, there's been a lot more argument about who wins the Ballon d'Or, just because it's not one of the two of them. But this year, 47 appearances, 33 goals, 14 assists as he wins the Champions League, the UEFA Super Cup, the Trophée des Champions, which is basically the French Community Shield, the Coupe de France, their FA Cup, was the Ligue 1 Player of the Season and was Ligue 1's top scorer. So super well deserved. And also, it's really nice to see the turnaround in his career from the youngster at Dortmund getting the huge money move to Barcelona. Didn't work out there at all, was injury prone, never really worked. To going to France and for PSG, and finally kind of hitting the heights that were kind of expected from him as a teenager, winning a Ballon d'Or. I think this is just an incredible story.
It is an incredible story, and it's one of those ones, Gitano, where you can't really make an argument that he didn't deserve it. I remember when you and I were texting, and it was one of those cases of, well, we kind of saw this coming, and truth be told, I am delighted, to your point, that he also won this. So, yeah, just the whole story of it, absolutely brilliant. But for the season and that he had, and all the accolades that you mentioned that he had won, and what have you, absolutely sensational. So rightly deserved, and I don't think that there will be any arguments this year or anybody throwing a fit as we usually see with the Ballon d'Or. Let's now have a look at Europe's Big Five, and we will start with the English Premier League. Liverpool have a perfect 5 wins, 0 draws, and 0 losses record. G, are they looking the out-and-out favorites here in the early part of the season?
I think 5 games is just way too small of a sample size, but I definitely think they're still among the favorites. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's as clear cut as some people want to call it after 5 games. There's still plenty of season to go. I'm trying to think, have they even played any like big six teams yet that I can
Arsenal.
think of? Oh
Played
yeah.
Arsenal.
So other than the Arsenal game, like they still haven't played Spurs, City, Chelsea, like they hit Newcastle. Like there's so many games that they just like huge important games they haven't played yet. So I wouldn't call them like out and out favorites quite yet, but they're definitely still a top favorite. Don't get that twisted.
Yeah, can't get that twisted. But what I will say in regards to Liverpool is amazing as they look, and I take nothing away from them. If you got to pick on one thing, they have leaked a few goals, and someone's going to jump on me and say, well, they kept a clean sheet against Arsenal, which is very true. But they have leaked goals this season more so than I would have expected. So there might be a little chink in the armor there, possibly. In Italy, Serie A, it's Napoli who are the current front runners. But Gitano, do you anticipate that it will stay that way moving forward?
I would expect them to stay in the ballpark of the Champions League places. Obviously, again, a lot of season to go. They've only played 4 games in Italy so far. But yeah, I would expect Napoli. Honestly, if you look at kind of the top four, top six right now, like pretty much the kind of teams you would expect outside of Inter sitting in 10th. Um, so yeah, there's that table's going to change a lot, but I do expect, especially with the business they did over the summer and how they've looked at the start of the season, I expect
Yes.
Napoli to be up at the top of the table for the majority of the season.
Yeah, you and me both, and a little bit of a resurgence there from Juventus. I like the way that they've looked. They've started on the right foot, I would say. So that'll be another team, hopefully, that can push. In Spain's top flight, it's Real Madrid, who have an unblemished start to the season. Gee, what are your thoughts on them?
So I think at this point, again, like with most of the leagues, it's just a little too early to really call it as kind of they're running away with it. But obviously for them, the start to the season that they've had, getting these early points on the board is huge, especially because we know Barcelona is going to push them as far as they can and as long as they can. Um, Really, I would say the story in Spain right now is the struggle of Atletico Madrid sitting in 12th, only one win, 3 draws, and the loss. But yeah, like when again you look at the kind of the top of the Spanish table, it's always going to be Real Madrid and Barcelona. Like I said, the bigger story is probably just Atletico's struggles right now.
Germany's Bundesliga is all about Bayern Munich to start the season. Gee, is this dominance set to continue?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of always is just the way the Bundesliga is right now. What we saw from Bayern Munich last season, domestically and in Europe. Um, and really, I think kind of the more pressing issue in the Bundesliga is just kind of the lack of, ambitious transfers across the rest of the league. Really, not no one really trying to push Bayern. I just think they've made it far too easy for Bayern to run away with the league. Again, do we expect them to go undefeated? They're undefeated to start the season. No, but are they going to probably have this league wrapped up by like late February, early March? More than likely.
Yeah, I don't think that the competition is necessarily there. And to your point, it was a quiet summer in Germany, so yeah, it looks like it's going to be Bayern all the way. And Ligue 1 in France is as close as you'd like it to start the season with Monaco, PSG, Lyon, and Strasbourg all on 12 points. Gee, what a start in Ligue 1.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the biggest story is PSG have already lost a game this season. Actually, happened
Yeah,
like today.
yeah,
um, and mind you, most of their team was at the Ballon d'Or ceremony today, which is why they kind of feel a little bit of a weaker team. Anyways, regardless, I hope this kind of keeps up. Again, it's very similar to me to the Bundesliga, where you know PSG is going to run away with it. You just want them to kind of have some competition, have someone kind of on their heels for as long as you can kind of get. But at the end of the day, it is going to be a PSG league win. But hopefully, Monaco, Lyon. I don't expect Strasbourg to keep up this form, but at least one of Monaco or Lyon really should be kind of hot on their heels at least until the new year.
yeah. Well said. I'd love to see that, and I think a lot of people would as well. Moving things along, it's the race for the playoffs that heats up in the MLS, and things are truly getting exciting this time of year in North America. Let's start by taking a look at the Eastern Conference. Philadelphia are the front runners, but not by much. Trailing them is a hungry Cincinnati, who are within 2 points. Charlotte is third. New York City is in fourth. Inter Miami is fifth, albeit they have a few games in hand. Orlando City is in sixth. Nashville in seventh. Columbus in eighth. And Chicago in ninth. The New York Red Bulls are aiming to snag a playoff spot as the only team in contention to still qualify. G, your thoughts on the East?
Yeah, kind of my thoughts this whole season. It's just weird not seeing Inter Miami top of the conference, and obviously they've had long seasons, including the League's Cup and what is it the CONCACAF Champions League. So I know they've been kind of stretched out in other places. If they win all of their games in hand, I think they tie first in the conference right now. So it's not like they're mathematically kind of mid-table, but just the lack of games played. Um, a little bit disappointing that TFC are not in playoff contention. never really expected them to be in playoff contention this year, because when it kind of gets mathematically confirmed, it's a little bit of salt in the wound.
Yeah.
But really, if you look at the rest of that table, maybe not position wise, but you look at the teams that are challenging, there's no real surprises there to me.
Yeah, no real surprises to me either. I don't want to say bog standard, but to your point, you can interchange positions, but you'd expect the teams that are in and around the playoff race or in a playoff position outright to be there. And Gitano, that kind of leads us into our next point with TFC obviously out of a playoff spot, not going to be in the playoffs this year. We didn't necessarily expect them to, but we thought that they might challenge, or at least we hoped. Have you seen any notable improvements this season from TFC?
Notable, maybe not.
Yeah,
I think what you're really seeing is just that, like, that base layer foundation being laid out. We've seen tons and tons of academy players coming through now, very young starting 11s, very young benches. Um, kind of laying, like I said, laying the foundation for kind of what is to come. I think since the departures of Insigne and Bernardeschi, I've seen the team be more of a team, really. You know, no wins in their last five, but also no losses in their last five, which is improvement. It wasn't going to be turned around overnight, but I think you're kind of seeing like building blocks being laid down. Going and getting DPs who are designated players that are kind of MLS standard. Don't mean that in a mean way. But they're players used to the MLS play style, the pitches, the travel, just kind of used to it all. Really, kind of, I think, bringing like a level headedness to the team right now. So yeah, it's not the perfect season. It's not a great season. We're not in the playoffs, obviously. But I think kind of the silver linings are, we're seeing a lot of youth playing. We're kind of seeing those building blocks laid down, and Montreal's bottom of the East. So like, really can't complain about that.
yeah, no, it's definitely not all doom and gloom. And to your point, yeah, is it notable improvements? No, but these are the building blocks and the foundation that needs to be set to turn a rather large corner. Out in the Western Conference, San Diego holds on to first by a couple of points over second place Vancouver. Minnesota is in third with LAFC in fourth. Seattle holds fifth with Austin in sixth. Portland, Colorado, and Dallas hold the remaining playoff positions. Houston, San Jose, and Real Salt Lake are all in the hunt. Gee, what can you say for the West?
I think the biggest shock of the West and probably the entire MLS season is the LA Galaxy, bottom of the table in the East, in the West, and bottom of the entire table. Even Montreal's ahead of them.
Unreal.
Just for the amount of money they spend on their players, on their staff, just the consistent expectation from that team. And they've always delivered. They've always been a playoff team. Maybe not always championships, but always a playoff team, always pushing deep. To see them just pick up 4 wins through 30 games is just, when the season started a little rocky, you give it some time, see how it plays out. You expect them to turn around, but just, I don't even think falling off a cliff describes it enough. Just how poor this season has been for them.
Yeah, and you know what? Every season, whether it's MLS or anything in Europe's Big Five, you always have to pick something unexpected to happen. I'm not sure that anybody could have predicted this. I know we certainly wouldn't have. I wouldn't have, no doubt about that. But like you said, to call it falling off of a cliff would be an understatement. This has been probably not probably this has been the biggest shock in the MLS. But what I will say is that race for the playoffs and those playoffs positions, I think, is going to get real interesting here within the next four or so games. So really looking forward to that. And as the race for the playoffs cracks on, you can get all of your MLS updates right here on Full Time. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to the Full Time Podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza and Sioux Sports. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker, easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. And be sure to check out Sioux Sports at SiouxSports.com and Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. With all teams in Europe having their feet wet to kickstart the 2025-26 campaign, that means that the Champions League is revving up and getting ready to go. Gee, we saw it last season for the first time, a new format in the Champions League, along with that new design to the competition, and with it just getting restarted. How excited are you for midweek clashes all across Europe, my friend?
Super excited. Still confused why City played on a Thursday, but that's a whole other topic. But yeah, super excited that Champions League is back. Biggest competition in club football, the most prestigious club trophy possible. And whenever I don't ever want to take for granted City playing in it, But anytime City play in it, I'm so excited. It is just to me the pinnacle of football at the club level. So yeah, super super excited that it's back.
Yeah, couldn't have said it any better. It is the pinnacle of club football, and absolutely love that we've got midweek clashes to look forward to all across Europe, and it's going to be very exciting. Gitano, let's go back to last season. It was PSG who took the Champions League for the first time in club history, winning the final by a score of 5-0 against Inter. An unprecedented result in the competition's history, with it being the largest margin of victory ever in a Champions League final. Gitano, who are some of those teams who fared well last year, including PSG and Inter, that you also expect possibly to do well again this year?
Yeah, I think it's kind of boring. I think there's those three top teams. It's PSG, it's Bayern Munich, and it's Real Madrid. Those to me are like the S tier. Like one of those teams at least is going to be in the final. I wouldn't be shocked if all three of those teams are in the semifinals. I just obviously like the way the competition works, like the seeding and all that aside. If it all works out nicely, I have a feeling those three teams will be in the semifinals, at least one in the final. Um, and then there's kind of like the group under, which to me is like Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Barcelona. Those kind of, I
Yeah,
don't want to say they're not major contenders, but when you look at the three other teams, PSG, Bayern Munich, and Real Madrid, it's the experience in winning this championship um, that really sets them apart from the other teams. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it. And again, most of those teams performed well last year, probably Bar City in the Champions League, but I think that was more of a one-off than anything.
yeah, I fully agree with you there. I can't really say much different. I do think PSG are going to be right near the top, albeit we know how difficult it is in this competition specifically to repeat. All Real Madrid have done it, but really apart from them, you don't see it too often. I think Inter's going to be in and around there. Bayern Munich, of course, and Real Madrid. I think you'd be silly not to put any of those teams in the conversation. Also, I think chucking Barcelona into there is probably a wise thing to do. Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal. I also put in there too. So I think that might be your possible quarterfinal, something to that effect with those teams. And I think that if that is the case, it certainly makes for some good viewership, no doubt. And like any cup competition, there are always surprises, which will mean that we are bound to see a team or two punch above their weight and advance in the competition to the knockout rounds, where most people probably wouldn't otherwise peg them to be. Gee, what teams in Europe do you think have the prospect of potentially upsetting the apple cart and playing the Cinderella role in the Champions League this season?
So, not that I expect them to go all the way to the final or win it or anything, but a couple teams that I think are just going to go on like surprisingly deep Champions League runs. We'll call it that. Our Newcastle, I think they're just a fantastic side. St. James's Park on a Champions League night is just an incredible advantage for them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, maybe push the round to 16, maybe a quarterfinal. Again, not going on and winning it or anything crazy. And then also one of the Dutch teams, either PSV or Ajax, just gut feeling that something out of the Dutch league is just brewing. I don't know. I see them in that table. And I was just like, there's just something about them. I think they're going to go for a little run.
I love that show, man. That's absolutely brilliant. I'm going to go in a slightly different direction. I think, despite the fact that the business wasn't good this summer, I always seem to have this weird and good feeling about Dortmund in Europe. I don't know why. So I'm going to say Dortmund. And also that resurgence that we talked about earlier with Juventus, I think that they might make a somewhat decent run in the competition, even if it's just to a round of 16, and they might bounce a team that we would think to advance. So I like both of them possibly to play Cinderella. And there are 36 teams in the competition once again this year for the second time around, and 24 teams will advance to the knockout stage. Gee, who might be a heavy hitter, in your opinion, or possibly multiple heavy hitters that could miss out?
It's funny that you brought up Juventus and yours because I've actually have them in this category as a team that kind of should be a heavy hitter that I don't think are going to go very far. I also made a point of not mentioning Inter when talking about favorites. I
Mhm.
think that and I don't want to base this solely on the start of their domestic season, which hasn't been great, but I look at their transfer window wasn't fantastic. It wasn't, the worst you've ever seen, but they really didn't do tons to improve overall. So yeah, because for some reason I've stuck with kind of the Italian teams, Inter, Juve, and I think also Napoli. Napoli is a team that maybe should push really far, but I don't think they've got the minerals to do it. So yeah, it sucks to kind of be a downer on all the Italian teams, but that's kind of how I'm feeling about it.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to agree with you 100% on Napoli because that's the team that I have number one that I think can miss out and will miss out. But also, I'm also putting Chelsea in there just because I think what the sort of difficult situation with that's going to be is how you going to pick an 11 suitable for that competition and then try and manage the Premier League games. It's just got too much to pick from, which some people might argue, well, that's a good thing to have. I think sometimes that can go against you. So, especially when you have that many players, you essentially have four different starting 11s that you could pick from, if not more. So, yeah, I don't think that is going to bode well for them, Gitano.
See, I didn't think of Chelsea like that because I didn't think of them as heavy hitters in the Champions League. I just think they're essentially number fillers in there. But yeah, I don't expect much from them in the Champions League.
Well, the reason why, I mean, if you take, I mean, they won a European Cup competition last year, albeit it wasn't, the most prestigious one by any stretch. Coming off that summer that they had, some of the signings that they made, I think a lot of people probably think that I shouldn't say a lot. I think some people think that they're going to do incredibly well and punch above their weight. I always consider Chelsea to be a big team, even though I don't like them, which is why I consider them to be a heavy hitter, but I don't see them faring particularly well this year in the competition, Gaetano. And G, who are your personal favorites, and it could definitely be more than one, who just might win this year's competition?
So to the surprise of nobody, I'm going to say Man City, obviously number one. Um, but I think Vinny Company's brewing something special in Munich, and I think with those business they did over the summer, which wasn't fantastic, but they kept the core of that team strong. Um, they're not going to have to focus too much on the league kind of post, February, March. So they'll be able to rotate their squad and kind of stay fresh for Europe. Um, and like you mentioned, it's so difficult to repeat. So not that I don't think PSG can, but I just think it's almost like a mental hurdle,
Yeah,
to repeat the Champions League. The pressure that's on them. So I think Vinny Company's cooking something special, and I would take probably them or City to win it.
well, I'm jealous about the latter part of your argument because I wish I would have made that argument and would have thought about that because I do now consider myself to be a bit foolish to not think Bayern Munich might be one of the absolute favorites. Again, to no surprise, I'll pick Arsenal as my number one too. But who I'm going to say is number two, Gitano, I'm going to say Liverpool. And the only reason why is because that business this summer and, their sort of prowess in this competition, they're not of the same ilk as Real Madrid. Let's not get that twisted. But I think that that this might be their competition this year, if not the Premier League. I hope not the Premier League. But if anything, I think this could also be Liverpool's to win, possibly. And with the Champions League getting the ball rolling here, mid to late September, one game for all teams having been played so far. And as the season progresses, you can get all of your major updates on the Champions League as well as the Europa League and Conference League right here on Full Time. And now it is time for a local and provincial soccer update. Ontario University Athletics varsity soccer is at the midway point in the season. Can't believe that I'm saying that, by the way. And for us here locally in the city of Sault Ste. Marie, that means Algoma University is at the midway point in their season as well. Unlike any other year that I've experienced as a player, as a coach, or a spectator, the league is just absolutely flying by this year. I can't believe it's the midway point already. Scary.
Yeah, when you said Algoma's last home games for the season or like this weekend upcoming, I was absolutely floored. Yeah, came completely out of nowhere. And maybe it's just because I've missed a couple of games of like the last outdoor season that I play. So there just feels like there's this massive gap that I just didn't realize Algoma was playing this whole time. But yeah, it's crazy that the season's already halfway over.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. And Gitano, it's sort of an unorthodox feel to the schedule here this season for Algoma because their schedule has been front loaded with, if you will, home games. So this upcoming weekend is going to be their final home games for the season at Superior Heights in league play. And apart from the occasion, with it being the final home games, some potentially big things on the line with playoff implications for more so the men than the women, but both the men and the women still, who are both still in contention at this point in time for the playoffs. So, games against Windsor at the weekend, anything could happen, Gitano.
Absolutely, and again, specifically with the men, the quality that we know is in that team. And again, you said there's still like half a season to go. It's not like this is like
Yeah.
I remember last season we were talking about like last home game of the season, like playoffs on the line type stuff. Still plenty of time for kind of the quality in that team to really push and clinch that playoff spot. Super excited to see it.
Me too. And last season that was in October that we were talking about that. It's still at the time of recording September 22nd today. Just the weirdest sort of alignment of scheduling that you'd ever see, where you basically had all but 2 games in the front half of the schedule at home, and now you're going to have all of your games in the back half of the schedule on the road. Yeah, I don't know how that all worked out and how that happened, but just totally bizarre. So we'll see what ends up happening. Gitano, for those that want to catch Algoma soccer action in the OUA, the final games of the season will take place on Saturday and Sunday, September 27th and 28th at Superior Heights Field. The women will kick off at 1 p.m. and the men will kick off at 3:15 p.m. on both days against the visiting Windsor Lancers. Definitely would encourage anybody to go out. I'm hoping to get out on Sunday to support those final games as well. So again, 1 and 3:15 p.m. for both the men and women on Saturday and Sunday this upcoming weekend against the Windsor Lancers. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to the Full-Time Podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full-Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza and Sioux Sports. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker, easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. And be sure to check out Sioux Sports at siouxsports.com and Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we bring today's show to a close, we want to extend our greatest thanks to all of you for tuning in. Gitano, as always, an absolute privilege to be with you here, sir.
It's a privilege to be on with you as well. I apologize for my dog barking at me. She was mad that I was not paying attention to her, that I was only paying attention to you. But a fantastic episode nonetheless, Scarps. Thank you again.
Always, man. And kudos to your dog as well, who got involved on Full Time as well. So not only do we have human viewers, we also have animal viewers too, which is fantastic. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of October 6th, 2025. In that show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five and the MLS. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Podbean, and Spaces at SiouxToday.com. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino. And thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Full Time Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.